We've spoken about many different fast food chains here in the channel, including McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, but today we're going to be diving in to Kentucky Fried Chicken, the decline of the brand and the food. Now, as we dive in, I'm here drinking my homemade coffee. Let me know what you guys are drinking. Now, let's have a watch.
Kentucky Fried Chicken is an iconic American brand. For decades now, families across the country have been gathering together around the dinner table to share that bucket of original recipe paired with the mashed potatoes and gravy and the biscuits. I know I'm not the only one who has some good memories like that. I mean, they used to be like the prime example of a successful fast food chain.
Now, when you think about KFC, right? Okay, it's fried chicken. We know that fried foods aren't the best for you, but at least it's real chicken. Unlike McDonald's or Burger King, where you don't actually know what's inside of your burgers, but is it actually?
Competitors would consider themselves lucky if they were somehow able to replicate some of that KFC magic, and that sounds strange today because it's not the case anymore. They're not as popular as they used to be, seemingly not as well liked, and financially they've been hitting some low points. Maybe the simplest way to demonstrate it would be by looking at their number of US locations, which has been steadily declining for quite some time. It's hard to even pinpoint the best time period for KFC. Obviously, if you're talking about highest sales or most locations, it would be around 2004. For market share, it would be somewhere around the 1970s. And if you're talking about quality or customer satisfaction, there is a good argument that could be made that their best time was when the Colonel was still in charge before 1964.
And it's crazy that they've actually lost about 1,000 locations in the United States out of the 5,000 locations that they had in total, which is quite a bit.
There is a lot to look at here. It's one of the biggest stories in fast food. So for today, I'm going to talk about the evolution of KFC by highlighting the different owners throughout the years, while also identifying what I believe to be the 5 biggest reasons behind their decline. The first owner of Kentucky Fried Chicken, of course, was Colonel Sanders, who was quite the character that lived quite the eventful life. He learned how to cook when he was 6 years old. Because his father died, his mother had to work all the time to support the family, and young Harland, as he was known back then, was forced to cook for his 2 younger siblings. When he was 12 years old, his new stepfather didn't get along with him, so he dropped out of school and left home to work initially as a farmhand, but that turned into a variety of different jobs over the next 20 plus years. In 1929, he opened a gas station in Kentucky and converted a storage room into an eating area where he served customers chicken and vegetables and of course the biscuits. The food proved to be popular, so the following year, right when he turned 40 years old, he opened a 142-seat restaurant/motel nearby, and that is what I would consider to be the start of the business that became Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Interesting.
In the 1950s, he became almost fully concerned with expanding the concept through franchising, opening the first franchise location all the way out in Utah in 1952, and within 4 years, he went out on the road full-time to try to convince people around the country to open their own KFC restaurants. All of these potential franchisees were influenced by the recognizable red and white stripe theme at the restaurants, the signature recipe that he had perfected, including the 11 herbs and spices, and of course the branding that included his own unique appearance that at this point has probably become more iconic than the restaurants themselves. That was all a very simplified summary, of course, but that's how he grew the chain to over 600 locations across the country before selling all of it in 1964.
I have to say, the branding and everything, it's iconic, right? It's kind of like McDonald's. You think of Ronald McDonald, you think of KFC, you think of the old man that has that signature look. I mean, this is something that you will always know, always remember, and it always had a heartwarming feeling, I guess, alongside of it as well.
That year, it was bought by a group of investors for $2 million, along with a promise of a $40,000 a year salary to Colonel Sanders if he continued to be the image of the company, travel around making public appearances and getting people excited about the brand. These new owners were even more effective in opening new restaurants than the Colonel was, because within just 6 years of taking control, by the end of that decade, there were 3,400 KFCs in operation. And that leads me to the first reason behind their decline: competition. Just think about that number. 3,400 locations in 1970. That is an insane figure. I believe it made them the biggest fast food chain in the country. I can tell you that they were twice the size of McDonald's. They had a head start in pretty much every market across the country, especially when you narrow it down to just the chicken restaurants. Like any other fast food chicken restaurant that you can name today, it was not even a factor. Most of them didn't even exist yet.
Wow, I mean, if we go take a look at that really quickly, I mean, Popeyes wasn't even there. Chick-fil-A, I can't believe Chick-fil-A was actually around back there. Churches, I've never even had Boston Markets I like, but it wasn't around back then either. So interesting stuff. And it's actually crazy that there were more KFCs than there were McDonald's.
Even exist yet, but as the years went on and things became more competitive, KFC has had a hard time keeping up with them. For example, Boston Market, they became a sensation in the 1990s by offering rotisserie chicken, so KFC followed their lead by selling the same thing. In 2013, Chick-fil-A became the highest selling chicken restaurant in the United States, a title that KFC had held for more than 50 years, and Chick-fil-A was able to take that title by operating not even half as many locations.
Wow.
In 1971, KFC was bought by Hublin for $285 million. They were a producer of popular alcoholic drinks, including Smirnoff vodka. Over that next decade, they continued to find people to open even more restaurants, reaching almost 6,000 of them by the 1980s. Now, for these previous two owners, clearly a big goal of theirs was to expand the brand by opening as many restaurants as they could, and a way that they made that happen was by cutting a lot of corners. You know, they found ways to make the food quicker and cheaper and easier, and of course, sacrificing quality in the process.
And this is something that happens with many of the fast food chains, if not all. And it's the decline of the quality. It's the introduction of more scientifically created foods versus actually grown and prepared foods. And this is the whole topic that we've been discussing here on the channel when we relate to fast foods.
Leading to my next reason behind their decline, various issues with their menu, and who else on this earth can better identify a decline in the food's quality than the Colonel himself? Throughout the 1970s, he would commonly criticize the food at the restaurants, claiming that there were many changes made to his original recipes. Referring to KFC, he said, "That's the worst fried chicken I've ever seen." On a separate occasion, he said, "My God, that gravy is horrible. They buy tap water for 15 to 20 cents a thousand gallons and then mix it with flour and starch and end up with pure wallpaper paste." He called the gravy wallpaper paste, and in 1974, when they came out with their extra crispy chicken, he called it a fried dough ball stuck on some chicken. KFC even unsuccessfully tried to sue him for these statements, so clearly some sacrifices were made to the menu. Another big issue they had with their menu at the time were their attempts to veer it away from fried chicken, kind of losing their identity and neglecting their core product by emphasizing other things like spare ribs or roast beef.
And this is where a lot of companies, they start to lose it. They feel the unnecessary need to excessively expand. For me, if I want the best fried chicken, I'm gonna go to the best fried chicken place. If that's KFC, that's where it is. But I'm not gonna go there because they have fried chicken, they have ribs, rotisserie chicken, burgers. You have to have a really good, distinct menu, and it doesn't need to be massive, in my opinion.
In the late 1960s, they even tried to start an entire spin-off chain of restaurants called Kentucky Roast Beef that grew to quite a few locations before shutting down altogether. Here, let me finish up the list of owners. In 1982, KFC, along with the rest of Hublin, was bought by R.J. Reynolds, America's largest cigarette maker at the time, though they were becoming involved in consumer foods, having acquired Del Monte 3 years earlier, and they would go on to acquire Nabisco 3 years later. But after only 4 years, they sold KFC to Pepsi, who paid $850 million for it, a deal that seemed to make sense for a number of reasons, but
who's surprised? Who's surprised that Pepsi owns it?
Mainly because Pepsi had previously acquired Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. I have talked about all of this in previous videos if you're interested in hearing more about it, but I do want to mention that KFC used to sell Coke products, and that of course switched over to Pepsi products following the acquisition. And this right here goes along with their menu issues. Taco Bell and Pizza Hut were both known for introducing successful new menu items, so when Pepsi took control, it was looking like they would do the same for KFC. They invested millions of dollars into a new complex dedicated to it, but it never seemed to pay off in the way that you would hope, introducing a lot of failed products around that time. To finish off the list, in 1997, all of those restaurants under Pepsi's control were spun off into their own separate publicly traded company called Tricon that was later renamed Yum Brands. They went on to buy and sell other fast food concepts, even tried co-branding many of them under the same building, but that is where KFC still remains today. So now, back to my other list, another big reason behind their troubles has been their marketing. When Colonel Sanders died in 1980, at 90 years old, they lost their spokesperson. Honestly, is there any other brand out there with someone more associated with it than KFC and Colonel Sanders? I was not even alive at the same time as him, and I associate the two. And I don't really know exactly what they're supposed to do here either. Attempts at different campaigns haven't been nearly as catchy or effective. They have tried to bring him back in cartoon form in the 1990s, and more recently as various celebrities dressed up as him. That one right there was part of a $185 million investment in 2015 meant to bring new life into the brand. He was originally portrayed by comedian Darrell Hammond, who felt misled by the company because he thought that he would be the longtime spokesperson, but then he was replaced by Norm Macdonald and then Jim Gaffigan and many others, including Reba McEntire. I don't know, it's a bit polarizing. It can be seen as disrespectful to an extent. Maybe it brought more attention to the brand, but I don't see any figures suggesting that it's been all that effective. In 2009, KFC did have a hit menu item with their grilled chicken, but the marketing of it was not handled very well. KFC sent a letter to the UN asking them to recognize a country called Grilled Nation, made up of the 60 million people who ate their new product, and then they sent someone dressed as Colonel Sanders to the UN building who somehow got through into restricted areas and even shook hands with some important people there. Again, potentially a misguided, even disrespectful marketing attempt. Still related to the grilled chicken, there was another fiasco where Oprah Winfrey promoted a deal on her show where the public can download a coupon for a free meal of it, and in short, too many people showed up, the wait times were too long, and they couldn't honor all the coupons. It was more bad publicity for KFC.
Anytime that Oprah is involved in anything like this, and we've spoken about her in depth on the channel, you can't trust it. And obviously she's going to bring a lot of popularity to something because of the popularity that she holds, but I don't like seeing any brands associate with her.
Another potential reason behind their decline would be the health content.
Oh, yeah.
I don't claim to know exactly what people should or shouldn't be eating, but Kentucky Fried Chicken is generally considered to be among the more unhealthier restaurants. The public has become more health conscious over time, especially compared to their dominating years in the 1970s, and that hasn't been good for business. I mean, they have the word fried in their name.
Yes, they do.
Actually, in 1991, they changed their official name to the initials KFC so they wouldn't have that unhealthy sounding word in their name. Soon after, they attempted to introduce more health-conscious menu items, which again didn't seem to catch on all that well. In the early 2000s, they had a campaign saying that KFC stood for Kitchen Fresh Chicken, seemingly another health-oriented campaign. In 2006, they were sued for the staggering amount of trans fats on their menu, and then later that year committed to phase out the use of trans fats in their cooking oil. The Double Down sandwich in 2010 used fried chicken instead of a bun, so you know that was joked about for being unhealthy. I don't know, it's just been a constant struggle for KFC to be seen as a at least somewhat healthy option.
I mean, again, let's be honest here. Fried chicken is not the healthiest food, but you have to compare it to some of its competitors, the Taco Bells, the Burger King, the McDonald's. Is it better than those options? Are there as many chemicals inside of these foods that there are inside of those restaurants' foods?
The final reason on my list is kind of a combination of leftover smaller reasons that I'm just going to call their reputation. KFC just does not have a strong reputation at this point. They've had a history of poor relationships with franchisees. They've been constantly criticized by animal rights groups. Whenever they renovate or update their restaurants, it always seems like it's a few years overdue. Their customer service has been criticized, and that's especially harmful considering their biggest competitor, Chick-fil-A, is known for their incredibly good customer service. In 1991, when they changed the name to the initials, it started this huge rumor that they had to change it because they were genetically doing something with the chickens, and then the resulting new creature could no longer legally be called a chicken. To be clear, that's not true, but it's a rumor that's been hanging on for like 3 decades now. So there you have it. KFC is not quite as big or as respected as it used to be, and those are what I believe to be the biggest reasons behind it.
Now, all of this said, if me, being a health-conscious person, had to choose between going to McDonald's and having a Big Mac, Burger King and having a Whopper, Taco Bell and having some Supreme Tacos, or KFC and getting a bucket of fried chicken, I would probably go with the KFC as the more health-conscious option. Although, inside of the breading and the oils that they use, it definitely is not the healthiest option for you. But out of the others, it would be my personal choice. Let me know what your personal choice would be, and I have a complete playlist of all of my fast food videos, which you guys can check out right here, and I'll see you guys over there.